Hey guys, Toolman Tim here. I told you I'm going to record some episodes on the road as I travel. This was a really good one. I saved this for while I'm away, so it won't have an episode number, but I will go back and renumber it when I get back. But I'll have it in there to fill in a spot for while I'm gone. Number two, I need to apologize for the audio quality on this episode. It's good, but it's not up to my regular standards. I did the best I could to fix it up in post audio production, but I recorded it using my AirPods. They're good, they're not great. I will carry my cordless mic with me when I travel, so if I get inspired from now on, it will be there. But the information was good enough that I thought you guys might overlook a bit of the audio quality issues. I spend a lot of time talking about property management, the ups, the downs, the ins, the outs, and all the fun that I have. So I hope you enjoy this pre-recorded episode. I believe I will be somewhere between Canada and Dallas, Texas, and back at some point when you hear this episode. So I really hope you appreciate it. Thanks for being patient. Thanks for accepting the subpar audio, but the content is there. So guys, let's hop into this episode now.
Hey guys, Toolman Tim here, coming back at you from the road. I am a quarter of the way home from Lloydminster, which is about an hour and 20 minutes from home. Figured I'd hop on and share what's on my mind today. Told you I'm going to do it whenever I get a long road trip. I'm going to hop on and we're going to chat. So here we go. Today, we spend quite a bit of time out of town. Like I said, it's about a 2.5 hour trip, round trip. We went up and had to clean out some condos that the bank had repossessed. So guys, this is where there is some money to be made. If you're ever looking at property management, if you're just even looking for a bit of a side hustle. Now, it doesn't happen overnight and it's not right away. You're not going to make a ton of money the very first property, but you're going to do okay. So the first thing, if you're interested in something like this is how you could have got started. I didn't get started this way because I just got a random phone call one day and said, "Hey, Tim, do you do property management?" And before I had a chance to say no, my mouth opened up and I said, "Sure, I do." So they got my name from the local realtors and it's turned out to be just huge lately. So here's the thing. If you ever drive by in town and wherever you happen to live and you see those houses, they might be for sale or they might look less than lived in, and you'll see, an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper in the front window, and it'll probably say something along the lines of, "This property has been secured by," and then there'll be an 800 number, an 866 number, and they'll say, "Hey, call this if there's any problems with the property." Well, that is a property management company, and typically each property management company takes care of one or two banks' properties, and what they do is when a person who ends up getting behind in their mortgage, they end up losing the house, or for me, every time I've ever had to deal with it, it's somebody's just walked away from a house. So they walk away from a house, they own the bank, they owe the bank a bunch of money, and so there's this in between time before someone else buys it that the banks own the property again. I mean, the bank always owns a mortgaged property, but this is where they are physically taking care of the property. So typically what will happen is if somebody is significantly behind in their mortgage 2-3 months, they'll say, "Hey, Tim, we need you to drop an envelope off at a house. You don't need to talk to the people, just put it on the door." And it's basically, "Hey, call the bank or bad things are going to happen." Now, typically, by the time I do that, I would say 50-50 whether people are living there or not. And then at that point, it's probably 50-50 whether they get it cleared up or they move away and leave the place empty. Anyway, so that piece of paper that's in the door, there's going to be a phone, or could be in the door in a picture window. There's going to be a phone number on there. Give that a call if you're interested. Just cold call. Cold calling can be awkward, uncomfortable, but even if you get one hit, guys. So if you're looking for something to just make a little bit of cash, especially if you live in a city where there's a lot of turnover for properties and things like that, call that phone number and say, "Hey, I'm looking to get into property management," or more appropriately, say, "I'm already in property management and I would like to expand my portfolio. Do you have anything available?" And they'll probably say, "Well, sorry, but right now we have a guy or girl in your area that takes care of our properties." We'll just say, "Well, thank you very much for your time. Could you keep me on the list in case something happens? I'm always available, ready to do it." because in this field, there is a ton of turnover because it's a slow burn business. What happens is, you'll get your first property, you'll make a little bit of money from it, but you're not going to be paying the bills from that first property. You really need to end up having a bunch of properties secured for the bank. For me, when I'm up around 10 properties, I'm doing really, really well. And I'll explain why in a few minutes here. So, call every one of those numbers in the area. Each one will be paying slightly different rates if one of them or two of them hire you. Now, you got to understand that certain parts of this process doesn't pay really well. And you got to be okay with that. But there's other times when you can make a lot of money. So here's the thing, guys. I just went up to a city, to Lloydminster today, and we cleaned out 2 condos. Me, my son, and my daughter went up and worked. We left Provost at 9 o'clock this morning. We're going to get home at 5 o'clock tonight. So we put an 8-hour day in, including travel time, and a solid hour eating steak and wings at Montana's. And we made $3,500 today. Sorry, I made $3,500. They made their hourly rate. Now that's great. That is friggin' killer money, guys. But I don't always make that. Once those properties are secured, I then every 2 weeks have to drive around and check on them. Each time, now it's horrible, guys, but each time you go to a property and check on it, it's $20. If you do the grass, it's also $20. So in the summer, you're going to get $40 per property you check on. And in the winter, if you have to do snow, same thing. So you end up getting $40 per property. Now, I have expanded out to I have about a 5-hour route that I take all the time. So it costs a little bit of gas, and the time you put into it, you just have to accept it. You might not make as much on these weekly or bi-weekly inspections, but there's big money to be made on the cleanups. Plus, you get to go through all the junk that you're throwing out. If anything's good, you can sell it online or keep it or barter with it or whatever. But it's a really cool side hustle that you can typically work around other businesses. Now, I will tell you a couple more things. Now, some of this may be different in the U.S., but how it works up here in Canada is I will get an occupancy check, and I have 2 days to go do that. And that's just where I put an envelope on a door, and then hopefully they call back. And then they'll give me a secure, which means it's time to go in, drill the locks out, change them to new locks, and I get paid like $100 for that, plus the locks are supplied to me and that kind of stuff. So it's kind of cool. And then I have to quote on the cleanup. So I send them all the pictures and I have to justify why things are going to cost what they cost. And guess what? They're a little picky on that, but that's where the money can be made. This one was a ways out of town. I had to bring labor with me. One of the 2 properties was a former drug den. So we had to take extra precautions, use extra PPE, that kind of stuff. There were needles in that property. So if you're squeamish about that kind of stuff or nervous, just something to think about. That'll be the 3rd property that I've looked after that we found needles in. So it just happens on occasion. So just something to think about. Now, start picking up other properties. What happened to me was I picked up this one company and I had 5 or 6 properties with them. And then I got a call last Christmas from another company. They said, "Hey, we found your name on Google. Are you interested in doing properties for us?" Why, yes, I am. And now I have 2 for them. But the thing about theirs is they're right in my town. And I could travel as far as I wanted to. There are properties that I've gotten calls for that would have been a 4 to 5 hour round trip for me, but they won't pay enough to make it worthwhile. Now, the longer I do it, the more kind of clout I get with them, and they'll let me take longer to get jobs done because they know I'll do it properly, or they'll, let me charge a little extra for certain things. I have a good lady who takes care of that on her end, and she knows how to make it work so that we can make a little extra money sometimes. But you also have to understand that certain times you don't make a lot for certain jobs. But overall, it balances out and you do really well. But it has to be, this is one of those things, just like building a social media presence and just like building content creation, it needs to take time to build. You're not going to quit tomorrow, go take over a bunch of bank repos, and pay all your bills. It's not going to happen, but it could happen in a year or two. So just remember, it's always baby steps. Baby steps out the door, baby steps down the hall, baby steps into the elevator. But eventually, you get to somewhere where you've built something great. You get the independence, the freedom, the financial freedom, the schedule freedom, all of that, guys. And you know what? Yeah, there are some days with property management where, I always tell the story. New Year's Eve last year, long after midnight, so it was actually technically New Year's Day, I suppose, at that point. Get a call from a tenant, and the furnace had died. Something you had to deal with. But if you're looking for a kind of low impact property management, not scheme, that's the wrong word I'm not looking for there, guys. But if you're looking for a way to make some money that you don't have to get your hands super dirty, unless, of course, somebody leaves and leaves everything behind. That's a story I'll tell you here in a couple of minutes. I was actually talking to the lady that we hired to come once a week to come and give our house a cleaning for us, because we're busy enough that we don't particularly enjoy doing the deep cleaning. It takes a lot of stress off my wife, so we've decided that's an expense we're willing to pay for. She does property management. I asked her what her rates were, and they were identical to mine. I was really happy for her. I said, that's a really good rate. So we charge $100 per unit per month, whether you have to do anything or not. That's just the flat rate to be looking after it. Now, I know some people charge more, but I ran into an elderly lady who's looking after these condos that only charges $20 per unit per month. And I told her she needed to get her rates up fast, or she's going to be burnt out for doing way too much work for way too little money. But yeah, so this lady kind of got me inspired to think about this. So we got up this morning, a little story time here. I got up, 6:30, 6:45. I got up and started loading all the tools, all the cleaning supplies. I was quite excited because I took some new tools with me. I took my Bauer from Harbor Freight portable spotlight. Really like that. Spoiler alert, we used that quite a bit because both these units didn't have power in them. Now, it was during the daytime. The upstairs unit was fine because it had windows. The downstairs unit has been boarded up because it was a crack den, and the people kept breaking the windows to get back in to get their shit. So we needed some light for that. So I took that one, and I took my Millet knockoff DeWalt spotlight. So we had a couple of them. We had headlamps. We didn't end up needing to use them. So we got started first thing in the morning, headed up, and I brought my truck and trailer up with me, ended up filling 2 complete loads of truck and trailer, rounded right up, that I had to take to the local dump. Ended up paying about $200 in dump fees, which wasn't bad. It's the first time I was ever at this landfill. And for some reason, this might sound foolish, but this will hopefully click with somebody out there. But every time I would take a job in a new town, I'd always be, I guess nervous isn't the right word, but just anxious about making sure I knew where the stupid dump was, how much their stupid fees were, and because every one of them is different. And the last thing I want to do is go to a landfill and piss somebody off and then not be able to go back, because they all have these certain sorting rules and things like that. So I try to do my due diligence ahead of time and find out. Turns out I went to this one today, and they asked me, where are you from? And I said, out of town. And they said, oh, well, you have to pay the out of town rate. So it ended up, it was double. They charged me $20 per mattress to get rid of it, and like $150 a ton to get rid of the garbage. As I'm leaving, just after she swipes my credit card, she goes, where'd the garbage come from? And I said, well, cleaning up a couple of condos here in town. She's like, oh, no, I am sorry. Apparently, if you're bringing the garbage from a place in town, even if you live out of town, you qualify for the in-town rate. Anyway, they give me my second load for free, and it all balanced out, so that wasn't too bad. But yeah, finding out, getting to know the lay of the land for each landfill is always kind of interesting for me. I don't know why. Random side note, we were heading up this morning, had a great big bull moose run right out in front of my daughter's van. We carpooled together, and beautiful big rack on him. So yeah, we got up there. This was one of those crackety crack kind of places. There's probably 40 units in the whole apartment building. And the entire time we are working, you continuously see people in their units peeking out the window, looking at you. And I'm just going to say it. These are people that have nothing better to do with their time. So they just come around and waste your time. We had one lady who come up, and this was kind of cool. She's like, what are you doing with that coach? And I mean, it was bad, guys. It was really, really bad. I said, well, we're taking it to the dump. And she said, well, could I have it? I got nothing to sit on. It kind of broke my heart a little bit. So we give her the coach, which was nice. But while I was gone, my two adult kids were there cleaning. And this guy come up and he said, my tool bag was there, my DeWalt tool bag. He told my kids, he goes, that's my tool bag. The guys that lived in there stole it. And Mac's like, yeah, buddy, fluff off here. Get going. That ain't your shit. And the guy started telling them all these sob stories. It's just, it is what it is. And I don't know what it is. I was talking to somebody about it. I believe it's meth. But every time we go to a place where there was druggies living in there, they just tear apart electronics like there's no tomorrow. I found what looked like a good flat screen television, flip it over, all the circuitry's been stripped out of it. Tons of different stereo circuitry just stripped out of it. It's something they do, and I don't know why. If anybody knows why that is, and maybe it's not even meth heads, I don't know, but it's some sort of drug that seems to inspire people to tear apart electronics. Because whenever we clean up one of these houses, we always end up with massive piles of unsalvageable electronics. Now, what good did I get out of this? Well, I did find a vintage camera with a lens. Thought it'd be worth more than it was, but I might get $80 to $100 on eBay for it. The problem is the lens doesn't match the camera, so I'm gonna sell them separately. And of course, I got one piece of male Tupperware. I got a milk crate, so that was pretty exciting. And my daughter got a behind the toilet rack, a nice metal one for her bathroom from the non-crackhead den. So there you go. So there's always some fun finds there for sure. Now, something else. There's a few things that'll make your life a little bit easier, no matter what, whether you're looking to start a handyman business or something else. But one of the first things is making jobs be less work. If you can invest a little bit of time up front when you're doing a job that can save you a bunch of time down the road, then do it. Because for years, I was always the guy that was just too damn lazy to bother taking a couple extra steps, setting something up, and making things go proper. Here's a story today. Now, this downstairs unit was completely boarded up. So they'd taken chipboard and they had boarded up all the windows. They did a really cool job. I'm going to try to get a picture of it next time I go up or some video to show you. But what they did was they took two pieces of chipboard, screwed it to the outside of the house. Then they ran carriage bolts through the plywood, in through 2x4s, and then drove those 2x4s into the sliding door track so that you couldn't pull it off if you wanted to. It was almost crackhead proof, except, an oscillating tool would fix it. So we had one of two options. We could take 10 minutes, maybe 15, and disassemble all that nice work by the security company, or we could have hauled every last piece of furniture all the way down the hallway, 5 apartments worth of hallway, and then out through the doors. And for a minute, I thought, no, I'm not going to do it. We're just going to haul it out the hallway. I asked, why, Tim? Because it would have taken twice as long. But just because I was in such an almighty hurry and an almighty rush to get started, I thought, no, we'll just start hauling. But we didn't. We did it proper. And the other one was kind of cool. We just took it out and dropped it off the balcony to the person below. So we made a little chain there and it worked really well. But so we took, I don't know, maybe 15 minutes to disassemble that kind of barricade they built. And then what we did was we gradually unloaded everything that was in this house. Like I said, 2 truck and trailer loads in a little I guess it was just a 2-bedroom apartment, guys. There was beds everywhere. There was beds in the pantry, there was beds in the kitchen, and beds in both bedrooms. But so we got that open. And what I find works really well is to bag everything. Because if you start throwing loose stuff into your truck bed or into your trailer, it takes 3 times as long to unload. It blows all over the place when you're driving, and it makes everything miserable. So we take heavy duty 32 by 52 or 36 by 52 contractor garbage bags. I use those for leaves too. They're awesome. They do the trick. So we get it all bagged, and then it stacks really, really nice into the boxes of the truck. So we got everything on the front lawn. It looked like it was a crackhead's yard sale. It was so funny. And nobody even look twice when they drove by. The only people that did were the people that lived in the building and kind of came by and were asking questions. But then, once we had everything out there and loaded, I kind of threaded the needle with the truck and trailer, managed to get it right on the front lawn within a couple of feet of all the stuff. And that saved us probably an hour of lugging. Because if I hadn't have done that, we would have had to lug it either down across the front lawn or all the way across the front of the building to the parking lot. So again, take a couple of minutes and think, what can I do, even if it's a bit difficult, that will save me a ton of time? Because at the end of the day, you won't remember how difficult that one little job was, but you'll remember getting done an hour or two early. So that's a big one. Learning how to drive with a trailer on, learning how to back up with a trailer on, guys, that's important. Now, here's the thing. This is confession time. I may have told you guys this before, but I moved to Alberta in January, first week of January 2014. So it'll be 9 years this January, almost a decade. So 2014, I would have been 32 at the time when I moved out here. I had never driven with a trailer on. I had never driven a stick shift before. And I'd really never used a ratchet strap, or at least used one properly. So this is all shit I learned since I've moved out here. Imagine, as a matter of fact, I have my Class 1 license and I can legally drive, an 18-wheeler. But all of this stuff, it was just one of those things that my parents got rid of their last standard when I was 14, so before I had a chance to learn. And then, of course, the longer life goes, you just never exposed to it, and you never think it's time to learn. So I went and bought a little stick shift Ford Ranger and learned how to drive it and got pretty damn good at it. Forced myself to be uncomfortable. Trailers, same way. When I worked in the oil patch, I had never driven with a trailer on. And the newfies I worked with were semi-patient, which is something if you know newfies. And they let me just go out in the yard and just practice backing up. And I would pull forward and I would back up. And I would pull forward and I would back up. And we had what we called the doghouse, which is basically a little mobile office on wheels. And it was probably 16, maybe 18-foot trailer, so nothing real big. And those are tricky to back up. And once you have that mastered, you can back anything up. So yeah, I got better and better at it and get to the point where I can back up around corners and that kind of stuff. But here's the thing, guys. Trailer's just one of those things. Once again, if you can get comfortable driving with a trailer on, learning how to back up a trailer, it'll make your life better. As simple as that. It'll give you more confidence, but it'll let you do more work in shorter periods of time. Because what does a trailer do? Even if it's a small one like mine, a little 4x8, it doubles my hauling capacity. So whether you're hauling firewood or you're hauling garbage to the dump, you can make half the trips. And of course, it doesn't quite save you half the time, but it comes pretty damn close. So getting good at backing up the trailer is worth a ton because get yourself where you need to be. When I go to the landfill, I back up right till I touch the garbage pile because every step I can save when I'm unloading garbage is one step I don't have to walk, which makes me all the more efficient. Alex, God rest his soul, used to be my operator in the oil patch, and he always said, if you want to know the easiest way to do something, hire a lazy person to do it. There's some truth to that saying. But typically, I have always approached anything like that as how can I do it the most efficiently? Even back in the days when we used to have to stack firewood, 12 cord every year, cut, split, thrown in the basement and stacked. I would, simple things like telling the kids, make sure you take from the top of the pile because it's like pickup sticks. If you try to take one from the bottom of the pile, everything's going to fall or it's going to be way harder to work with. So take it from the top of the pile and then you're not working against it. Figure out your shortest path, your shortest route to take something somewhere and then repeat it because one step saved on one trip is nothing, but one step saved on 1,000 trips, well, you do the math, right? It's all about efficiency. That's how I get shit done so quickly. I built those 16 to 24 decks this summer, and I think it was 3 of them. I can't remember for sure, but each one was a day. And every time the parents would come in, how do you do it so quick? And I don't rush. I'm never in a hurry, but it's all about being the most efficient and, cutting as much wood at one time as I can, doing everything, repeating something. So if you need to stack wood, get all your wood stacked before you start cutting. Don't jump from one tool to the next. It's all about speeding things up and making them more efficient without rushing and hurting yourself. Now, here's another random thought. And I've heard Dixie Mills say this before too. I'm pretty sure it was Dixie anyway. This is something I've always believed in, and my father definitely believes in. But 10 minutes early is on time, and on time is late. Now, I don't know if that's just my personality or if it's my generation, but I can tell you the generation, to an extent, some of the generation coming behind me struggles with that. Let's just say that I wanted to leave town this morning at 8:30, and we didn't leave town till 9 o'clock. I don't know why that gets under my bonnet so bad, but if you want to piss me off, tell me we're leaving at 9 o'clock and don't show up till 9:30. That I can't do it. If I'm leaving at 9 o'clock, I'm in the fucking car at 8:50 and we're heading out at 9 sharp. And it might drive the family a little bit crazy and maybe I'm a little anal about it, but I'm just telling you, like, if you're not going to make it somewhere, you're going to know. If you make plans the day before and say, hey, I'm going to be somewhere, then you know when you need to be there. You know what time you need to be there. If you need to cancel, cancel the day before. But if you go to bed that night and everybody says, hey, we're going in the morning and you're not sick, then damn it, you need to be there on time or a little early. That's just the way I've always been. It didn't matter if I was working for somebody I hated. I was always 10 minutes early. And I know some people are like, well, why would I give my time to a workplace that doesn't give me what I need? Well, for starters, even if you're working for somebody else, you should treat it like it's your business so that you can practice for when you do have your own business. But for me, it was all about stress and control. If I got to a job, if I had to be to work for 7:30 in the morning at Home Hardware, and if I showed up at 7:30 and I rolled into my office, by the time I was ready to work, it'd be 7:32, 7:33, and my phone would be ringing. And I'd be hooped for the whole day because I never ever got my feet under me before I started. So I'd be discombobulated, I'd be grabbing papers, couldn't find them, I'd never get caught up. But that extra 10 minutes before my phone started ringing, I would show up, you could center yourself, catch your breath, get your paperwork in order, make a plan for your day, and then let it all go to hell after that. But no, honestly, for me, that 10 minutes wasn't about giving the company extra time. That was about giving me extra time. That was about preventing my insanity. It was all about making sure my day went the way I wanted it to and watching out for my stress levels. So I had a guy I went to college with, Dave, loved that dude to death. And I always said he would have been late for his own funeral. It did not matter. I remember days we'd be walking down the hill to chapel and he'd be brushing his teeth, walking outdoors, or shaving his face with an electric razor. That dude just could not get anywhere on time. And he runs his own business now and, whatever. It is what it is. He's a yoga instructor, so maybe they're not too strict on what time you show up for your classes. I don't know. But for me, it's just important. It's a sign of respect when you tell somebody you're going to be there at 9 o'clock and you show up a few minutes early. And then also, if it's an event or you're going somewhere to meet with somebody, well, that just means you're going to get extra time with them. Or if you get started, this is something else we do a lot. Becky and I, if we have a doctor's appointment or a specialist appointment and we have to drive 2 or 3 hours out of town, well, the first thing we do is we allow a couple of extra hours for the drive because you never know what's going to happen. And what's the worst that's going to happen? You're going to get there. You're not going to have any problems. You're going to be an hour and a half early. Well, you know what? About 50% of the time we go to a doctor's appointment, if we're an hour early and we show up, we get in and out before our appointment was even scheduled. So why not? And then it takes the stress off you. It builds in a buffer and you're able to just enjoy your day a little bit more. I don't know. Like that's what drives me nuts. And I don't want this to be old man yells at clouds because I know there's people in my generation like Dave and there's people in my kids' generations, millennials and Gen Zs, that have a hell of a time with it. And there's some that just don't have a hell of a time with it. But whatever it is, if you're building a business, if you're spending time with somebody, for me, one of my absolute non-negotiables is 10 minutes early is on time and on time is late. I don't know. I know it's probably my father in me that he's always been that way too. And I just fret and, get a little grumpy when when we're not heading out when we say we're going to head out. But it's just a respect and a way to center yourself and get your day heading off on the right foot. So I took some new tools with me today to test out. I didn't get to test as many as I would like, but I want to give you an update on a couple of things. First off, the Bauer cordless spotlight. I love that thing. That thing has a ton of power. Now, I do need to take one of my batteries back with me to Harbor Freight. The 5 amp hour battery I bought is giving me the double blink that it's a faulty battery. So that needs to be returned and get a new one. Not too worried about it, but yeah, it sucks when you don't have a Harbor Freight nearby and you need to return something. The knockoff DeWalt Spotlight, like that too. I definitely like the Bauer one better. I'm going to do a review on it. I didn't realize until afterwards, but that Bauer is also an AC/DC unit, just like their pump. So you can buy a 110 volt cord that you plug into the wall and you have unlimited power. But we ran a 3 amp hour battery on that for a couple hours today and never ran it down. It got pretty hot and it gave off plenty of light. So that if you're looking for a good, inexpensive spotlight and you're using the Bauer brand, man, that one, where I'm driving, I can't tell you what the lumens are on it, but it's potent. It has a nice carry handle. It even has a kind of like feet on it that you could screw down to something if you need to leave it somewhere, either permanently or semi-permanently. So we took those with us. I also got this thing called the Glide Ease. It was sent to me from the guy that invented and makes the 4-arm forklifts. Now, I love those things. Those are great. And it was so nice that he sent it. I was really looking forward to testing that out today. But it turned out, since we didn't have to go down the hallway, I didn't have to use it. So that'll have to wait for another day to test out. But it looks like a great big, if you guys remember those magic carpets or carpet slides or crazy carpets that we used to have when we were in elementary school and you'd go sliding down a hill. For those of you who don't live near snow, they basically just look like a really thin piece of plastic. This is probably as thick as about 10 of them stacked together. Still flexible, still light. You can put an appliance on it, and as long as there's no rocks under it, you can pull it, a very heavy, awkward item, across a smooth surface fairly easily without it digging in or scratching. And it has a pull strap, which works really well. But I'm going to spend some more time testing that out. And they sent me some loopies as well. And those are basically ratchet strap extenders. I brought those along today, hoping that I'd need to use them, and I didn't. But I will definitely be testing those out in the future because they're a pretty neat, fairly inexpensive kind of product. Now, here's another one that I'm going to do a review on, guys, and this is a little bit out of my normal wheelhouse. So a few months ago, my beautiful wife bought a new vacuum, and it showed up to the house, and I said, "Oh, that's a nice vacuum." And she got that look on her face like she does when she buys something. We always talk about things, but, she said, "Just don't ask how much it costs, hon." And I'm like, I don't care. It looked like a nice little stick vacuum. I figured, whatever, even if it was $200, it wouldn't be bad. So it turns out it's a Dyson, so you can imagine where this goes. The damn thing was just about $500, but it was worth every fucking penny. So here's the thing. Every time I go to do a job now, I'm taking her little Dyson with me. And I really don't want to hurt it because she will be brokenhearted and I'll have to buy her another one. But it's a tool. It's not just a household, around the house item. That thing can vacuum an entire house on a charge of battery or maybe a little extra. It does have a proprietary battery, which kind of sucks, but there are some adapters and stuff you can get for some of the Dysons. But this thing is great. It's made out of like aircraft aluminum. It's light as a feather. It just works. I don't think there's a belt in it either, which is great. And it's completely modular, so you can take the head off, take the shaft out, move the head down to the base unit, and all of a sudden you have a dirt buster or a dirt devil. And I take it over and I can vacuum all the floors at the 12-unit apartment building I look after without needing to worry about a vacuum being plugged into the wall for Central Vac. Those cords are a pain. I can do the entire place in about half the time it took me when I used to have to haul out the Central Vac. So it's great. It's a little expensive, but like I said, I'm going to do a review on it because I've kind of half inherited it as part of my handyman business, my property management. But sometimes, like I said, it does pay to buy quality. And this Dyson handheld has been great. So those were the main new tools that I took with me. Really enjoyed them, especially the Dyson. The Dyson's been my favorite. So beyond that, guys, I'm quite excited. I ended up, again, overscheduling myself just a little bit, but I booked a few extra shows for you guys coming up here in the next little bit. Actually, tonight, this episode you'll probably won't get till next week sometime, so you might not quite follow the timeline, but tonight I'm racing home because so we went up, we did all that property management, and then I got Nat, the preparedness guy, coming on this evening to have a chat about preparedness. He is a legit emergency management officer, something like that. He has a master's in emergency management. The dude is a straight up emergency preparedness geek, and I love it. We get along great. We had a lot of time chatting at prepper camp, and I've been waiting to have him on the show. And I had to move him around because he was booked for the week I was gone to Jack's fall workshop. But it's gonna be a great episode. He's also into freeze drying too. Give me some candies to bring back for the kids. I got some of them in the pantry. So it's going to be a good episode. We got Kayla coming up from Tactical Response. I've been wanting to get her on for a bit. We got Ed from Iridium. He is coming on. He's a fellow Canadian, fellow Canuck. He's from Vancouver. I originally had him to come on to talk about prepper health and fitness. But the more I hear about the dude, the more I'm like, you know what? I just need to bring him on and let him talk because he is an expert on so much shit. He's been down to Tactical Response a few times too, and so we're going to pick his brain. We're going to see what's up with him. I got John Willis and Amanda Willis coming on Halloween Sunday. They're going to come on and talk about all the different kind of urban exploring and haunted houses they've gone in. Well, not really haunted houses, but urban exploring anyway. I'm looking forward to that. I always love chatting with John. He's a kindred spirit, and it'll be fun to have Amanda on. I believe Mrs. Toolman's going to be on, and Saturday night, of course, we're going to do our second edition of our top 20 horror movies. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm glad you guys let me expand my horizons a little bit and cover topics that don't always get covered in preparedness. And I know the biggest thing I struggle with is not getting typecast. That's why I started this podcast, and I've probably shared that with you before. But if you see an actor, I don't know, like say Robert De Niro, I mean, he was an awesome actor. And more like some of the character actors, but you see those same guys in mafia movies all the time because they have a face, and all of a sudden, all they do is mafia movies the rest of their life. And they make good money at it, but there's no variety. For me, I need some variety. Simple as that. So that's why I started the podcast, so that I could talk about a multitude of topics without kind of cutting into my normal video content. Because what happened real quick was I became known as the generator guy and the DeWalt tool review guy. And I love talking about generators, and I love talking about DeWalt tools. But when it comes down to it, I can't do just that for the next 10 years. I mean, I guess I probably could if you held a gun to my head, but I really like variety. What do they say? Variety is the spice of life. Always enjoy it. And so thank you guys for indulging my interests. If there's ever an episode that you just don't like, turn it off. I'm cool with that. But keep coming around if there's stuff you do like. And maybe, who knows, maybe someday I'll spin the pop culture stuff off into its own weekly podcast. But I don't know. If you guys are digging it, I'll keep doing it. And even if you're not, I'll probably keep doing it, but I'll move it somewhere else just so it doesn't clog up your podcast feed too much. But I can definitely see within a year this podcast going 5 days a week. I don't imagine I'll record any more live than I'm doing right now, but I'll pre-record some stuff and have it up there for you. Well, that's it for me now, guys. I hope you enjoyed this rambling from the road. I'll definitely record some of these while I'm heading down south to Dallas. I cannot wait to go where it's warm again. And I'm going to be missing some SNOW. We don't like to say it out loud because it'll jinx it, but no, we're going to get some snow. Don't worry about it. So guys, as always, stay happy, stay healthy, and have a great week.